How y'all doing? I'm Captain Travis Thompson. I'm a full-time saltwater fishing guide, and I also do duck hunt charters. I'm also the host of a podcast called the Cast and Blast Florida Podcast. We have a very large listenership in Florida, so what you're going to hear is some of my thoughts, but also a lot of what I hear from tens of people a day. First off, I want to thank you guys for having this meeting. I am not anti-spraying at all. My family has a lot of friends that are applicators. I asked a similar question in September in the same room. I think that's when we had our last meeting. And that is, when I go to the South Florida Water Management District meeting, DEP says the water year last year, we had 1,048 metric tons of phosphorus come into the lake, into Okeechobee. Came from north of the system. That's a nutrient load that's coming in and then getting dumped out both sides. Fishing in Southwest Florida, Captain Marquette talked about how bad the coastal fishing has been. Yes, I realize red tide has naturally occurred. However, the nutrient load that we have seen dumped into our estuaries, I'm 42 years old, I'm not as old as some of these folks, but it's unlike anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. The marine mammals, it's a death that is unseen. Here's my question. The target is 105 metric tons to come into the lake according to DEP. When we have a dry season, we do a burn ban. Like the state or the county municipality will say, hey, they're not anti-fire, they're not against people having fires, but they take a tactical approach that says, under these circumstances, we're going to look at something and leverage everything we can to mitigate not having fire spread or wildfires. My question to you guys is, why aren't we doing that with nutrient load in the system? Yes, I realize we want to keep the lakes clean. Yes, I realize we've got to do something about floating vegetation. They're not nearly as effective as a remover of nitrogen and phosphorus as something like hydrilla is. However, why are we not taking every advantage we can when we are at 10 times the amount of phosphorus we're supposed to have coming into Okeechobee? That's not even counting what's happening in the local watersheds down there.
I think that's a fairly complex question. So Matt, if you could note that one and see if you can cover it in your final comments.
And that's not just my question, that's a question that I hear on a daily basis.
It's a very complicated one.
So when we spray, I don't know what the amount of glyphosate we spray is, but glyphosate is a phosphate-based chemical. So I'm sure you guys will address that. At some point, we're adding a phosphate into it. We're removing hydrilla, which is an effective filter of phosphorus and nitrogen. And we're adding to the nutrient load by not exploring mechanical harvesting. So we're adding 3 components into this. I'm not saying we should never spray again, but I'm saying given the tactical situation that we're in right now, we're in a water crisis statewide. From where we're standing to Florida Bay, both estuaries, we got a problem, and we got to fix it somehow. I'd also like to add on, I'd like to see some sort of collaboration meeting between this group, DEP, and South Florida Water Management District. Because I feel like we have some compartmentalized stuff going on, and it would be very refreshing to see you guys in the same room having a conversation about this. That's all.
Thank you. I don't want to get them in trouble, but there are actually a couple of representatives from South Florida Management District here and listening carefully. So hopefully they noted that. Terry Seagraves? Terry, where are you? Right, here we go. Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
It's been a while, yes. I come to you not with a solution, but I come to you with years of frustration. I've been coming to these meetings ever since they've been established. And 5 years ago, I stood up here and I said, I see the lakes deteriorate every day beneath my feet. And by the looks of this room, I say these people are seeing the same thing. I have seen it year after year after year. I said it 5 years ago, and if we don't do something now, we're going to say it 5 years down the road, it's going to be worse. I have a chance to associate with some of the top bass pros in the country. I've had a couple of them stay at my house. I've talked to people from California, Connecticut, Virginia, Japan, and their comments is they look at you and they just shrug their shoulders and say, what are you doing to our lakes here? We've got a pristine, one of the most pristine waterways in the country. I've been lucky enough to travel many of them across the country and even out of the country. We've got one of the best freshwater fisheries and habitat and wildlife sanctuaries that I know of in the country. And we are treating it like a retention pond. And a lot of people have talked about spraying. And I don't know if many people know it or not. Every time I see a spray blowing in the water, I call Marty Mann. I said, "What are you doing out here?" He says, "That's not us." I'm calling out South Florida Water Management because every time I turn around, they've got a herd of boats going out of Lake Toho, Lake Kissimmee, Lake Okeechobee. I've seen it all the way down the chain. And there's 10 or 15 boats at a time, and they're all South Florida Water Management boats spraying everything they see floating anywhere and everywhere. I think that's way too much. I think South Florida Water Management should be at the, I'm glad to say, I didn't get into it in the introduction, but I'm glad to see somebody here, the South Florida Water Management is here. And I think they need to be called out on these issues. And FWC does not need to take all the brunt of all the spraying issues and problems we've got with our waterways. A couple of things. One, I've traveled down to South Florida a lot. I've talked to Cheryl Reed, one of our county commissioners, and she keeps talking about all the projects they've got to clean up the water in South Florida. Everything flows downstream. You can take Lake Toho, go to Cypress, gets a little worse. Go to Hashtag, gets a little worse. A little worse in Lake Kissimmee, a lot worse this year in Lake Kissimmee. And then Lake Okeechobee is a disaster this year. Everything flows downstream. Why don't we look at trying to get some of that money up here for projects for backwater reservoirs to clean this water up? And the spraying and all the issues that we're talking about would be solved if we can solve our pollution in this water. That's our biggest problem. That's where we need to start. And I will say that I appreciate Marty Mann and all the guys with FWC and ladies too, that they have worked hard, they're diligent at it, they're really concerned about it. But we are losing this battle. And I would ask you to think out of the box. I would ask you not to go down to Tom, down at the office, down the 2 doors down and ask him what the problem is. I want you to research some people out of our realm, out of this country, and ask people to come in and look at it. We need to do something different. What we're doing is failing, and we need to look at somebody who can give us some answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Next up is William Keebler, followed by James McCall, and then Mary Scott. And Doug, you're right after Mary, so you could come up together. William Keebler.
Sir, I'll yield my time to the next speaker.
We appreciate that very much. If you'd like to submit comments in writing or talk to staff, that would be appreciated. Mr. McCall?
Good evening, James McCall, 4092 Zion Drive, St. Cloud, Florida. Mine was more of a question. I think maybe a couple of people here covered it. It was kind of a concern regarding, is there visibility between the agencies, South Florida Water Management, FWC, DEP, where the accumulation, are we taking into account the accumulation of all the spraying on top of each other? Is there communication between that?
Yes. Yes, there is. The commission directs. We're responsible for directing all of that control for basic plant management. So that is coordinated with all of the partners.
Okay.
DEP, South Florida Water
And
Management.
do the people that are hired, are they aware? Because I know you say, we got people spraying banks that are bare, stuff like that.
I guess I want to be specific for anything that the FWC does or any of those for the invasive plant control program in the state of Florida. We coordinate that work. Now, there is work that's done outside of public waters and that sort of thing that is not coordinated by us, but anything in the public water realm is coordinated through FWC.
Okay, and that was kind of the concern was about the compartmentalized and other agencies and stuff like that. That's all I have. Thank you. This question.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Mrs. Stark. Mary?
Good evening, Mary Spar, 825 Clifton's Cove Court in Cocoa. I live on the St. Johns River at Lake Poinsett, and our house faces a little cove that is habitat for fish, wading birds, alligators, turtles, and since December, a family of 3 manatees. Some muck is on the deeper part of the bottom of the cove, and we sure don't need any more. After Hurricane Irma, water hyacinths were blown into the cove, but they're gone now. We have not had any hydrilla. I believe that the FWC supervisor for invasive plant management for our area is very conscientious and sincerely wants to do the right thing. But he has only spraying as a tool for hydrilla and water hyacinth control. And supervisor is not the one doing the spraying in our cove and elsewhere in the St. John's. I cringe when I hear the contractor thereabout coming and I go outside to watch. It is sickening to see the applicator spray vegetation that is not an invasive problem. Mindset seems to be, the more herbicide, the better. Or, it won't be a problem if some herbicide is sprayed on water with no plants. Or, to prevent more hyacinths, just give that healthy switchgrass an extra buzz. Please, no more of these irresponsible habitat-wrecking, muck-causing practices. It's time for FWC to step to the plate and demand sufficient money for enough mechanical harvesters to control the hyacinths and hydrilla in the state of Florida. In Brevard County, the Melbourne-Tillman Water Control District successfully uses a harvester, and our Brevard County harvester is on the way and expected to arrive by the end of the month. FWC needs to drop its "we're on a tight budget" excuse and that we hear in Brevard County and insist on the money for the harvesters. It's also time for FWC to mount a robust effort to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus entering Florida waters so that aquatic weed infestations will not develop. One way this can be done is through educational initiatives for homeowners. The public needs to know how to reduce septic system nutrient input into our waters, and homeowners also need to realize the effects of over-fertilizing and pesticide use so they can be part of the solution. Another way FWC can help reduce nitrogen and phosphorus inputs starts with monitoring the outflow from agricultural lands. FWC needs to gather data or lobby for others to collect data to show the current destructive effects of biosolids as sewage sludge on Florida waters. For example, I hate to think of the harmful effects of the application of 40,000 tons of Class B biosolids on 30,000 acres by a neighbor across Lake Poinsett. And that's the official figure for the ranch in 2017. This doesn't count any Class AA biosolids that ranch may or may not apply. In conclusion, I urge FWC to change its methodology focus from aquatic spraying to controlling by mechanical means. Also, FWC should harness the powerful tool of public education to reduce homeowner contributions of harmful nutrients to the water. Finally, FWC needs to become very proactive in preventing nutrients from agricultural lands from reaching our waters. Addressing the nutrient contributions of agriculture will take a paradigm shift on the part of FWC, but your agency's help is crucial. The time is right politically to change your methods, expand your educational outreach, and shift your paradigm. Please rise to the challenge for the health of Florida's waters.
Thank you. Mr. Farr, we were liberal with your wife's time. If you would be short, we would appreciate it.
I'm actually very short. She's a hard act to follow, so I won't burn as much time. I took the name Doug Spar, the same address as the previous speaker, and I've resided on Lake Poinsett for over half a century, owned property there. Talked to longtime fishermen. They tell a story about how the fishery declined because the sandy bottom has disappeared due to decades of spraying for basically water hives. And this spraying has unleashed tons of decaying biomass. This biomass consumes oxygen. We've had some low oxygen events in the lake. It releases nutrients back into the water column, which some people mentioned here today. That just fosters more weeds that have to be sprayed and just helps propagate that cycle. With regard to glyphosate, it's a phosphonate that's the active ingredient in Roundup. Scientists at Ohio State Sea Grant Program have demonstrated that cyanobacteria, such as blue-green algae, can grow using glyphosate and other phosphonates as the sole source of phosphorus. So when you're using this chemical in St. John's Lake, you're putting phosphorus in the water, and the way polluted, in the upper basin, state statistics show in 2017, 7,000 tons of Class B biosolids were spread along the shore, and that biosolids are typically 2% phosphorus, a lot of water-soluble phosphorus, and that is leaching off and raising the phosphorus level of the lake. So there's like a 1-2 punch there. You're putting in phosphorus, excess phosphorus twice. And so I would advocate greater use of mechanical harvesting. And basically what happens, you see they do analysis, oh, it costs this much to buy a chemical and this much way more to buy a harvester. But they need to take a more system approach to it to do the total life cycle cost of mechanical harvesting versus spraying. For example, the FWC should attribute costs to the decline in the fish rate. That's an economic engine for the state of Florida. They should attribute a cost to no spraying, to loss of recreational and habitat values. And so if you take that more global type analysis there, you could balance things out. So maybe the use of a mechanical harvester would be more favorable. I'm not advocating it's 100% solution, but it should be part of your toolbox to make great use of the mechanical harvester. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Larry Street, followed by Nicholas Minbray, and Mark Evans. Larry.
Howdy, I'm Larry Street. I'm from Ohio. I just wintered down here. I'm a snowbird. But I've been coming down here for 27 winters now, and I really enjoy you guys' weather and the fishing and gigging frogs. And that is just about history. Up until probably 2010, I started gigging in probably 94, and the gigging in the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes was just fantastic. It was great. But from about 2010 on, it started going downhill. In the last 2 years, it's just terrible. This year I went around Hassanal, all the way around Hassanal near me, one night, 3 hours. I gigged 2 pounds of frogs. They're gone. If I get in an area and there isn't very many frogs, somebody's already beat me to them. You see hundreds of little ones. You know, the little tiny ones, you know, you see their eyes in them. They're all over the place. You don't see them no more either. Something's got to be done with this spraying. I'm just a snowbird, but I'm just here to tell you something needs to be done. Thank you.
Nicholas?
Bad handwriting, if you read my name that badly.
I'm sorry, it's definitely
No, that's all right.
Minbray.
Mencken, but that's close.
I apologize.
No worries, my handwriting. My name's Nick Mencken. I appreciate you guys letting us come out and talk this evening. First, I want to speak to the presentation. I found it slightly ironic that we would headline the biological means of eliminating our problem and go all the way down to chemical at the end, like it was the stepchild or the last resort, whereas in my 150 days a year on water, I'm only seeing spray boats. I'm not seeing mechanical, and certainly not running across with a lot of grass carp. Fire, I understand y'all are hamstrung by burn bans, area to burn, the availability of water drawdowns, etc. More importantly, I think what we need to speak to is that we're trying to beat a problem at the tail end of the system. We've implemented stormwater treatment areas to treat the water at the back end of the system rather than the front. There's a big elephant in the room that's drained a lot of water down Reedy Creek watershed, and it's a nutrient issue at the top end. I'd like to see FWC more focused on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your admirable work. Mark Evans?
No, that's okay.
You okay?
Here, Marty, so.
Appreciate it. Thank you, mate. Next then is Chris Passmore and then Larry Rosen, followed by Robert Guthrie.